By understanding the old us, the future us, and the us we are working towards being, by playing a little game and talking about dreams and aspirations, we dive deeper in today's topic. Never too late to play. See, I was born in 89, and some people will see me today and tell me, oh, you're just a baby. Or they'll say things like, you just made the cut for the 80s, barely. But those little comments, well, they always warrant a straightening that I never dismiss the chance to give. And it goes like this: I am old enough to remember brick cell phones. Heck, even house phones and voicemail box. To have grown up with a cable box that allowed you to steal cable, and even with the box, most TV channels still went off at night. I have lived long enough to have done book reports without Google, where you had to go to this massive bookshelf in the house with tons of encyclopedias, and you have to pull one down by the alphabet it started with and flip through pages searching for what you were looking for. It was more like manual Google back then. And if that wasn't enough work, you had to pull out a big old typewriter and type up the report. The first ones didn't even have spell check. So you need to get a dictionary to sit on the desk too, just to reference all the words you were unsure of spelling. This was a lot of work. But this was my childhood. Back when Bell South owned everything. And then when we finally did get computers, they were really stupid. No one liked them very much. And they forced us to take a computer class in school. Microsoft Word had been created, and I was convinced that spelling tests should now be canceled forever since the computer was going to correct me for everything. Then there was AOL and Instant Messenger, and I thought MySpace was like a big deal. I grew up in a whole different world, and so many things have changed. Back then, I didn't know what being gay was. It wasn't something that was openly exposed to children. Even when there would be an openly homosexual adult male, people would call him sweet, but never gay. And it made us think that they were like more soft than tough, but not that they had a different sexual preference. I don't know if we would have even understood that back then because everything was still so very secret. There was no rap songs that talked about anything dealing with the same sex. And many families still would beat children trying to make sure they didn't turn out to be homosexual. Looking back on it, it's really sad. But back then it was normal. Today is totally different. Being openly gay is a lot more accepted nowadays, and I think that's great. I get asked by young adults often how things were when I was growing up, and I tell them the same. I explained to them back then a girl who was an athlete would normally be called a tomboy, but nowadays terms like that are obsolete. And I can't never seem to get them to understand how different the world was without Nicki Minaj's and Cardi B's today. But it was. And I'm not saying we need to go back, although I miss certain aspects. As I take you down memory lane, just showing you how we can focus on who we used to be, what we used to do, and how things were once upon a time, and how sometimes that's not always most beneficial, especially when we're looking towards the future and we're trying to be better us. When we talk about the future, I think about myself, and in speaking on this section, I want you to think about yourself, your goals, your aspirations, your dreams, things that you can play with in your mind. As we look to the future and focus on what is in our control, we are reminded that we still have time left to make changes. Changes in the world, and within ourselves for the better. When I make new plans for my life, I work backwards. I start with where I want to end up, and then I work backwards to today. It brings clarity to things I need to do now in order to get me to my end goal. Now, don't get me wrong. The older I get, the harder it gets to change. Because a large part of me wants to remain the same. But that part that wants to change is just stronger. Sometimes it's a little less consistent, but stronger overall. Whether we realize it or not, we are all playing a game of life. And understanding who we used to be helps us to understand the changes we need to intentionally make for our future so that we can play a little bit better. Oftentimes, from childhood to adulthood, people have asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. My answer is pretty much always the same. Well, I'm still figuring that out. I have worked tons of jobs since I was 14 years old, and already I have had 3 separate careers. Some people will perceive this as a person who does not know what they want or can't make up their mind, a person who's uncertain. But I'm far from that. I just know my worth. And no matter what job I do, it won't ever be a job that I sacrifice my happiness for. I'm just like that. I'm a person who can master something quickly and do it with ease, but at any point, if it doesn't work for me, it just don't work for me. And I won't just stick it out just to say I stuck it out. I will happily take the experience and the knowledge and move on to something better. And I've done that consistently throughout my life. My generation is different in that way. We're not going to get a good job and keep the good job. We're happy to take the risk at finding a great job. Now, I'm not promoting that you all leave your current situations in life and move on to better ones. Not that that's a bad idea. But my point is, no matter what stage you're at in life, you can always switch gears from present focus to future focus and look towards what's in your control to change. Like many messed up societal norms we have fed into, this one has left a stint on our brains when making career plans. Find something you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. I don't know about all of that. Many people have spent a lifetime looking for what they love to do and have not found it yet. The irony is, in my research, I couldn't even find the author of this quote. It is credited to several different people, but there's no specific reference to when or where it came from. Yet people still believe it. Word of mouth is still the most powerful marketing tool. And people make life decisions based on that quote, and no one knows where it came from. There is one thing I love to do, and there's always been one thing that I love to do, and that's spending time with my loved ones. Now, if my loved ones would pay me, then maybe I could see the truth in the quote, but since they don't, I just disagree. Even the greats like Michael Jordan or LeBron James, who I'm sure love basketball, that don't mean they happy to play over 100 games a year. Sometimes even making millions, even loving the game, it's still work. So I think we should focus less on finding what we love so very much and focus more on what we enjoy, or at least something that we don't mind doing that will provide us the income we need to go and do those things we love and give us our time back. So today, if you're watching this I want you to make a plan and make changes because there is still time left. Time that no amount of money can buy. Is it a hobby that you wanted to learn but never got around to? Or what about a language or a skill you want to master? A business you were meaning to get off the ground or a dream that got deferred along the way? What about you just getting back to things you used to enjoy that made you feel fulfilled? Today, it's time to get to it. Yeah, maybe you can't do things like you used to. But guess what? None of us can. That doesn't mean we can't do anything. It's still not too late to be whoever you want it to be. And it sure ain't too late to play.